Good evening, District 5. This is, I'm the Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman. This is the second of our 7 budget town halls, and I'm joined by your Councilwoman, Amanda Fiedler, our Budget Officer, Chris Trumbauer, your Community Engagement Constituent Services Officer, Reese Peak, and other staff as well. We're going to start out with I think a few words from Councilwoman Fiedler of introduction. Then we're gonna do a slide presentation that's got some background information about how we're putting the budget together and the process and what our funds might look like this year. And then most of our time is going to be spent listening to you. We want to hear what your priorities are. We're going to be writing it all down. And then at the end, Councilwoman Fiedler and I will come back on and give some closing thoughts and based on what you say. And hopefully we'll get you out of here within an hour and a half. So Chris or Reese next, or Amanda next.
I can go, absolutely.
Okay, Councilwoman Fiedler. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you, County Executive. Good evening, everyone. I thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us here tonight. It's a little bit different to be looking back at my own face instead of looking at all of yours, but I soon hope to see them here on the screen or at least hear your voice. This is an important part of the budget process. I don't yet know what the budget looks like. I don't know that the county executive has it all figured out just yet, but that's why this is so important. You know, when we were doing this presentation and town hall last year, we were just prior to COVID-19 coming to Anne Arundel County. So I am cognizant of your income, your taxes, the burden that's put upon you, but I'm also aware of the needs that we have in the county. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say this evening. It does matter. I think a perfect example of that is last year when the Friends of Animal Care and Control came out to every single town hall and discussed the needs that they had, the really dire needs that they had, and we all heard those. So I look forward to hearing your priorities tonight, and thanks again for coming out.
So, on to Chris, who's going to get us started. And then I'll take over from there.
Great. Well, good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Chris Trumbauer. I'm the budget officer for Anne Arundel County. And we're going to walk you through the first couple slides and then turn it back over to the county exec. So what you see before you is the budget timeline. As you can see, it actually begins for the administration all the way back in September, shortly after we pass the current year budget. We start working on the capital budget. Right now, we're nearing the end of January, and we're just getting departmental recommendations from the operating budget. So very shortly, we will submit our proposed capital budget to the Planning Advisory Board, and then you can see we've got several months of work ahead of us. But the key take home here is that we are just getting started, and that's why the county executive feels so strongly about having these presentations now, while there's still a chance for constituents to influence budget priorities. So this also shows that we will introduce the budget on April 30th, and by charter, it must be voted on by June 15th to be effective at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1st. So we can move to the next slide. Okay, so this is taken straight off of our online budget tool, which you can get at aacounty.org/yourbudget. And it shows where our FY21 general revenues come from. You can see it's a little over $1.7 billion with a B. And over to the right are the different components of where we get the main portions of our revenue. So there's also some green and red arrows to show you year over year how it compares with the previous year. So the biggest tranche of funds that we get are from property taxes. That's a pretty stable revenue source. It was up from last year a bit. We're at about $75 million. Next down is the local income tax, which is actually up from year over year. And that is a little bit of a surprise, but a good one, because we had expected revenues to go down significantly due to the COVID pandemic. But because the federal government acted pretty decisively with the CARES Act last spring, that has really helped buoy the local income tax coming into the county. And then there's a pretty big drop off from revenue sources after that. The next biggest one is recordation and transfer tax. That's every time you sell a house or refinance, there are recordation and transfer fees. So that one's, we're projecting it down a little bit at this point compared to last year. But if the real estate market stays hot, that may get revised upward. And then you can see all the other ones, almost all the other ones are down year over year. And that is unusual, but is a result of the COVID pandemic affecting some of the revenue streams from the county. So we can move on to the next one. So this is the other side of the book, is the expenditures. And what you see here is the biggest bar there is our friends at the Board of Education. So they get about $857 million directly to them to run our good school system. The next biggest one is public safety, which is very important. And then after that is general government. The other fundings, the other expenditures are smaller, but very significant. Human services, debt service is what we pay on our bonds and other things that finance our capital projects. And then we have some of our component units like the community college, the library, and the judiciary down there as well. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, and this is just a little bit more detail on our biggest expenditure over to our friends at the Board of Ed. You can see that we give about $750 million in direct funding to them in the FY21 budget, but then there's several other components that make up that $857 million total. So that's debt service on school capital projects, school health officers and the school resource officers are all paid for by the county, but those are separate to the actual direct Board of Education budget. So all told, a little bit more than half of our funding this year and every year recently goes to the Board of Education. So we'll move to the next one. And this is where I turn it back to County Executive Pittman.
All right, thanks, thanks, Chris. We're going to go through just a few areas of funding that have been priorities for both me and for the whole county council and your councilwoman as well. And the first is public safety, and just talk a little about what's been done recently. It was a real high priority for me coming in to this job to get our police department and our fire department closer to the levels that the international accrediting bodies call for a county our size and with our condition. And in the police department, that was especially important. We were below 700 and needed over 800, and we're getting close, but it's cost us some money. And we've done the same with firefighters. We've got a federal grant called the SAFER grant to help get us there with firefighters. So we're going to be continuing to hire more firefighters. And the other thing that we found was that our salaries for both and all of public safety, but particularly police and fire, were significantly below our neighboring counties. And so in their contracts this last year, we brought them to the average level for the region, which we think is going to help with recruitment, help with morale, and help with services. But we have fantastic police and fire departments, and a new police chief, Chief Amal Awad, who you will meet at some point, I'm sure. But we're really thrilled. It's expensive, but it's important, our public safety work. And then in education, we had a little bit of a lean year this last year. In fact, this last year, we projected a significant drop in revenue. And so we tightened our belt. And it was a good thing that we did, because it's put us in a better position this year. And we'll get into that. But so we didn't do as much this year in terms of reducing class size, but we did have 96 new classroom teachers just to keep up with growth, 76 new special ed, and 12 behavioral health specialists. And those were areas where there was no question that we had urgent needs. So we hope to be able to do some more of that this year, but we think it will be a rather lean year as well, budget-wise for schools, but we'll see when the numbers come together. On the environment, I know your district, there's a lot of water and there's a lot of love for trees and the streams and the rivers and the Chesapeake Bay. And so we are very proud of the work that we've done. We've done additional funds for park renovation. A lot of you pay attention to development projects and how they go through the pipeline and how you can intervene to impact them. And so we have this big project. It's called Land Use Navigator. You've seen some of the online mapping that you can start to use. You've used some of that in the work commenting on general development plan. But it's going to be possible within a year or two for residents to really be able to track every project, every stage of it, and get the documents they need to be able to participate. And it's also better for builders and developers who, frankly, if they're good projects and we want them to be able to get through the system, this is going to make it easier, and they're going to have the certainty that businesses need to be able to plan. And then impact fees and fiscal impact of development. We do have a study. This is something I promised from the beginning that we would try to get the cost of development, the cost of the infrastructure and the services required by development off the backs of the average taxpayer and shift more of it to the actual development, probably not all of it, but more of it. And then to do real assessment of the fiscal impact of different kinds of development. It's really important for us to know what pays and what doesn't pay fiscally, so we figure out a way to pay for the infrastructure so we don't get left where we've been in recent years with a huge backlog of infrastructure because of the development. And then more on infrastructure. We've done new fire stations. The one that I think most of you might be the most excited about, and I'm the most excited about, is that when we did, I think most of you remember 2 years ago, we did a small increase in our property and income tax. And one of them was a 0.1% increase in the income tax, specifically to fund this backlog of permanent public improvements. And we set aside a big chunk of that for roads and transportation, particularly for Route 2 and Route 3 corridors. And so we've gone to the state highways and said, look, you have promised us to deal with our failing intersections on Route 2 and Route 3. And I know this crowd it's all about Route 2, and I understand that. And we brought them to the table, and we've actually got them now agreed to participate, to plan with us. They've done a study. They call it the DISMO study, and we're going to have a town hall about this for your community coming up very soon, and go over what their proposals are for areas where they're going to add lanes, areas where they're going to do work at intersections. And we've got the carrot, which is the money, some money anyway, from the county to be able to bring the state money in. There's state roads. We would love for them to pay all of it, but they won't step up unless we step up. So we're doing that. And then a couple more projects there. School construction plan we're keeping up with. I know is important to many of you. We've got to have good quality schools for our kids. So let's see, next one. And then in your district, there's quite a list here, and there's a lot of information that you can get on the website from the capital budget if you go there about every project. And we are looking district by district and looking at the areas of the county to make sure that every district is getting their fair share of the capital budget. And the ones I'm most excited about in your district are the Broadneck Trail, and of course, I'm always interested in rec and parks, all of the park renovation and Kinder Farm and some of these others that are listed here, because that really improves the quality of our lives. So next slide is, okay, where does the money come from and what it's going to look like? We've talked about where it comes from in terms of categories. And the big question every year is, as we project out, looking at whether or not we're going to have more money than we did the previous year. And most years, the county basic revenues grow, and they grow in the $50 to $80 million per year range. And ideally, that allows us to be able to do, which you'll see in the next slide, but to do the basic non-discretionary required things that we need to do to keep up with inflation and costs. But it's looking okay for FY22 for this next budget, probably in the $60 to $80 million range are the projections. Things were not as bad this year as we projected with the economy, with the pandemic economy. I would say they were very bad for people at the bottom end of the economic scale, and not as bad for the stock market and folks at the top who could work at home in their jobs, but not as bad as we braced ourselves for. And what that means is that there will be a fund balance at the end of this year that we can use for one-time expenditures, not things that we know we're going to have every single year. And that's our goal, is to have some leftover money at the end of the year to be able to put into important things. So we're not in bad shape. And as far as federal money goes, We got our $101 million in CARES Act money that really made it possible for us to meet the needs of the folks who've been hurt most in this pandemic and to step up and do contact tracing and testing and all of the amazing work our health department has been doing. And we are going to have some additional federal money that has already been passed, the $900 billion. And that's going to help our schools. It's going to help our health department. It's going to help some of our health and human services and eviction prevention programs. And then we'll see what comes after that. I wouldn't venture to guess. So with that extra 60 to 80 million over last year, non-discretionary things are increased debt service benefits to our employees, negotiated pay packages, and then some of the things that that we could do are additional pay packages, undoing our hiring freeze that we've had, additional health and human service programs. We could do whatever we have money to pay for. And we hear from each department every year what they think they could do to improve services to the residents. And we have a long list of capital projects, of course, that wait in line, unfortunately, many of them to be funded. So next slide. Our property tax rates, I'll just be quick here. You can see that we're at 93.4 cents per $100 of assessed value, which puts us in the lowest, seventh lowest in Maryland out of 24 counties. So we're down with the rural counties and the central Maryland counties with greater populations like us have higher rates generally. Then the next slide is the income tax comparison. And so we are at 2.81%. It's the fourth lowest in the state. 3.2 is the maximum allowed by the state. And about half the counties in Maryland are at that level. Virtually all the central Maryland counties are at that level. So next slide. I mentioned that it was the low wage workers, and this is a slide that shows this coronavirus recession versus the previous three recessions. And it's just a chart that shows us that the lowest quarter of wage earners, which is the one in the lower right, that purple line shows how much more likely they are to lose work compared to the other three quarters of the wage scale. So we have to keep that in mind as we build our economy back. And then the next slide is, you may have heard in the papers last year and again this year, I've been part of a group that's proposed that counties be allowed to do their income tax rates progressively. They used to be progressive in that higher income folks paid a little bit higher rate than lower income folks because they were a piggyback on the state rates, which are progressive. There's a proposal that's been supported by the Maryland Association of all counties, asking for the authority to be able to have staggered rates. And if we did that, the way it works is that there's one rate that would be for folks who make over $500,000 in a year of taxable income that could go a little bit higher even than 3.2 to 3.5. If that were the case, it only means the income above $500,000. So if you make $600,000, $100,000 of your income would be taxed at a slightly higher rate. It could help a little bit in terms of lowering taxes for the majority, for the 98.6%, and 1.4% of our population is actually in that bracket. So it's something that we will look at if the legislature General Assembly passes it. And then finally, I just want to quickly, a few slides of ways to engage. See, click, fix, or 311 is where you go to report things that need to be fixed that you see around the county. Open Arundel is our new, just launched this year, open data portal where we have information about every department and their performance metrics. So it's what we look at when we budget, it's what we look at in management, and it's what we want residents to look at so that they can get a sense of the progress that we're making or that we're not making. And then finally, we have an online budget tool. We've done this the last 2 years. You can go online and build your own budget. You can add and subtract from the budget and play around with it. The math forces you to pay what you propose, pay for what you propose. Kind of a fun little activity. This is just the web page where you can find these things. Report a concern would be 3.11. And then the next page. So this is acounty.org. And then the next page is actually the stats from Arundel Stat or Open Arundel that show 4311 C-click fix, the numbers of reports or complaints that are responded to. So in 2020, it's been growing because it's been a fairly new system, but we're up to 19,000 over the year. A lot of work by a lot of people, hopefully being responsive to you. And then the next slide is, this is the Open Arundel portal where you can click onto these things and have some fun. It's almost like playing a video game, and it's only going to get better. These maps and GIS things are going to get more and more sophisticated. You're going to be able to really get a sense of what's going on in your neighborhood. And then finally, we have, okay, this is the budget tool. Let's click through this and let's get moving. That's just the final. If you go to aacounty.org/yourbudget, you can find all of these fun games to play. So let's move on. I'm going to turn it over to Reese Peak, who's going to manage the public comment section of this. Or right, that's next, right? I'm sorry, I lost my agenda tonight, folks. That's what comes next, right, Reese?
Thank you, Mr.
Good.
Executive.
Keep me in line. All right, I'll get out my pencil and take notes.
So we're moving into the public testimony portion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to give their public testimony, and you'll see a screen track of the time. Those who would like to speak should click the raise hand function at the bottom of their screens. This will show to me that you would like to raise your hand to speak. I will call your name when it's your turn, and you'll have the ability to unmute yourself so you can talk. The county executive and Councilwoman Fiedler won't respond to every comment for the sake of time, but they are taking notes and will share their thoughts after we've heard from everyone, and if you want to stick around to hear them. So I'm going to look at the participants list, and it looks like the first name, well, we have a lot of hands, is, and I apologize, the first name is Heather Raven Bakash. And then I'm gonna go with the next 3 individuals: Robin Nokar, Drew Mulch, and Linda Mazer. So yeah, Heather.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you can see me or not, but good evening. I'm Heather Robinbach, manager of the Broadneck Library. I'm testifying in support of the library's budget and to share the enormous impact libraries have in our community. Despite the pandemic, we continue to serve the residents of this county. We started offering virtual programs and more than 30,000 people have tuned in. We have significantly increased our collection of ebooks, e-audiobooks, and streaming movies. We expanded home access to popular databases like Ancestry.com and added valuable online learning resources like JobNow and Lynda.com. We increased hours for our free online tutoring service with more than 36,000 people using BrainFuse to get homework help. We offer Chromebook and Wi-Fi kits for checkout. And for the first time, curbside pickup is available with nearly 90,000 customers taking advantage of this safe option. We are proud to offer all these services, but what we care about most is helping our customers. Several grandparents told me they check out bedtime stories to read to their grandchildren via Zoom. One grandmother traveled across the country to babysit her granddaughter because her daughter is a nurse. While there, she learned to download e-audiobooks with the Libby app. She and her granddaughter listened to books at breakfast and while running errands, a very pleasant routine during a difficult time. The library is celebrating its 100th birthday in 2021. To help us become the library of the next 100 years, we need your help. We have important infrastructure and IT needs, and we also need to provide a path for advancement for our entry-level professional staff. I urge you to support our request. Thank you.
And next we will have Robin Nokar.
Good evening. My name is Robin Nokar, and I'm a resident of District 5. I've been a volunteer at Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control for 7 years. I'm also a board member of the Friends of Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control. We are here again this year to discuss what we think is the biggest priority for the shelter during this year's budget process, and we hope to be at every Zoom budget meeting. I first would like to thank each of you, Mr. Pittman and Ms. Fiedler, for coming to visit the shelter last year. It meant so much to us, volunteers and staff alike, that you took the time to see the shelter and its needs for yourself. We were so thrilled when the shelter then received the new dog cage doors to replace the dangerous old rusting ones. The shelter also had a staff position added that has someone to coordinate the rescue of 1,000+ animals a year, as well as oversee the shelter's volunteers and fosters. The shelter still has so many unmet needs. Foremost, in our view, is the need to hire a staff veterinarian. A 2018 state law that sets minimal care standards for public animal shelters requires that a veterinarian supervise the medical care of all animals at a shelter. But our shelter has never had a vet on its staff. In contrast, Baltimore County Animal Services, which is about the same size as our shelter, has 4 vets on its staff right now. In addition to a staff veterinarian, the shelter requires additional funding for medical supplies, including some very basic ones. As it now stands, for example, our nonprofit has to pay for the flea and tick treatments given to thousands of incoming animals. I hope you would give the shelter funds to hire a veterinarian and increase its medical budget. Thank you so much for listening.
Great, thank you. Next is Drew Much. Hope I pronounced that correctly, Drew.
Yes, good evening. My name is Drew Much. I'm the volunteer chief at the Cape St. Clair Volunteer Fire Company. On behalf of the more than 50 volunteers at our station, thank you for giving me some time to address you this evening. As mentioned earlier, there is a plan to replace our fire station. We're extremely excited for this opportunity as the current station was built 64 years ago. Back then, it was built by the volunteers themselves, working on nights and weekends on the back of their own trucks. Obviously, a lot's changed in the county since then, and it's a project that's beyond our capabilities and our funding as volunteers to build a new station. However, we're excited to be a big part of the process. We've been actively planning for over 5 years to determine what our needs are. We've reached out and engaged with STEM students from the county to do research on possible sites, which helped lead to a decision to keep the station exactly where it is, which I know is very pleasing to all the members of the Cape St. Clair community. We've done a lot of research into the requirements and best practices for new station construction. The technology has advanced significantly in the decades since our current station was built, which leads to tremendous improvement in reducing the cancer risks, improving the functionality and the safety for both the public and the members of the fire service. We also attended a couple of years ago a station design conference in North Carolina to learn best practices and to meet resources, including architects and builders. With all that said, please look forward to working with you and supporting the budget to provide a new station that will be the gateway to Cape St. Clair for the next 5 or 6 decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Next is Linda Mazer.
Hello, my name is Linda Mazer. I'm a District 5 resident and I'm advocating for additional resources for animal care and control. First, I'd like to say thanks to both of you for your support last year and for taking the time to tour the facility to get a clear understanding of the needs for the department. While some requests were granted last year, many items still need funding. Several priority items include a full-time veterinarian, cat cages that meet the state standards, and additional staff positions for animal field officers and dispatch staff. I'll focus on the need for additional field services staff. Currently, 2 animal officers handle about 2,000 bite and rabies exposure cases annually. 8 other officers handle about 6,000 field cases a year, including cruelty cases and other violations of animal laws and injured and stray pets. More officers are needed to cover weekend and holidays, including the 4th of July, and more dogs are lost than on any other day of the year. Field services can be thought of as the front line of animal services. Often, the first and only interaction the community members have with their animal services department is with the officers who are out in the field. Having the resources to cultivate a positive relationship with residents in the field will increase our community's efforts to save more lives. Animal field services based on community engagement increase public safety, oftentimes by identifying and addressing issues before they become a problem. Properly staffed field services allow for a community engagement-based animal control model, which reduces intake and call volume and saves more lives while improving public perception of animal control. While there are many unmet funding needs for animal care and control, field officers not only improve animal welfare, they are an important part of public safety.
Okay, great. The next three individuals I'm going to call on are Susan Youngs, Ralph Heimlich, and looks like Dr. Gregory Pogreka, MD.
Can you hear me? Thank
Yes.
you, County Executive and Councilwoman Fiedler, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Sue Youngs. I live at 847 Holly Drive South, Annapolis 21409. And I'm a constituent of District 5 and a longtime volunteer at County Animal Care and Control. A Maryland General Assembly mandate to the Department of Agriculture regarding public animal shelter states that by 2018, quote, a veterinarian shall supervise the medical care and medical treatment of all animals in an animal shelter, end quote. To date, Animal Care and Control still does not have a veterinarian on staff. The shelter does not have the staff expertise to care for critically ill animals, nor the funds to send the animal to an outside veterinarian. If it was not for the shelter's nonprofit paying the bill, it would never be lucky to be examined by a vet and could consequently suffer and die. The same standards also require a cat cage large enough for an animal to, quote, sit, sleep, and eat away from areas of its enclosure where it may defecate or urinate, end quote. The shelter's main cat gallery still has the old plastic cages that both of you saw last year on tour. Shelter staff and volunteers work tirelessly to care for all animals until they are adopted or go to rescue, but that sometimes takes months. But all the kindness and attention does not negate the fact that cats must live most of a 24-hour day confined to a 2 box, and this is not right. I respectfully urge you to put funds for a staff veterinarian and approximately $6,000 for a one-time desperately needed upgrade to the shelter's cat cages. We are all accountable to the animals at Animal Care and Control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Youngs. Ralph Heimlich.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes.
yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, I wanted to just hit on 2 points. First of all, I'm a member of the steering committee of the Chesapeake Paddlers Association, which is a 700-member kayak club that uses Anne Arundel County waters extensively. And I'd like to thank the county for increasing public water access over the last few years quite a bit, and I think we can improve that even more. The one point I'd like to touch on is the proposed plan for the Spriggs Farm Park. We've been able to see it, and right now it's inadequate. The beach down to the path down to the beach has an erosion problem, a severe erosion problem, but using mulch on that steep hill really isn't going to fix it. It's going to need something a little more hard surface to deal with it. And the plan also does acknowledge the existing and well-used access road, parking, and staging area for kayaks and other activities, and doesn't therefore provide for them in the new plan. So these improvements that are shown in the new plan will only restrict use of the park for kayaking, which is a bad idea. Second, I'd like to offer an opportunity, some low-hanging fruit. We could create a kayak launch at South River Farm Park and another one at Weinberg Park for $1,000 and some volunteer labor, and Chesapeake Paddlers would be more than willing to provide the volunteer labor to get these done. I'd certainly like you to consider these, and they're very low cost, and we'd like to have them take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heimlich. Dr. Pogreka.
Hi, Gregory Grifka here, two kayakers back to back. I want to add to Ralph Heimlich's presentation. I'm coming to you tonight as the executive director of the Baltimore region's most active sea kayaking group, the Water's Edge Kayak Club, with 1,715 members, many of whom live in Anne Arundel County, as do myself. So, as Ralph said, the majority of our paddles also occur in Anne Arundel County. And while we applaud the efforts that have been made for improved public water access, there are many problems that remain. I'm not going to talk about Spriggs Farm Park because Ralph handled that, but I want to ask the question, why does Anne Arundel County have only 2 public boat ramps, even though there are 9,000 registered trailered boats in this county, and many of us kayakers use the same water access? Why isn't the swimming beach at Beverly Triton Park finished? It was supposed to be done this past spring, and it would give people a long overdue place to swim, and it would also take pressure off the Sandy Point State Park. It's just terrible. The county still rents a county-owned marina with 17 boat slips, a boat ramp, and a parking lot to the Beverly Beach community for $1,000 a year, and yet still hasn't created a public swimming beach at Beverly Triton. Next, let's think about stopping this secret reservation system that's been proposed for Mayo Beach Park. Why isn't this park open 7 days a week like the rest of the county parks? The local park obstructionists are secretly trying to get the county to make you use a smartphone app to enter the park. And this is just unacceptable and a needless obstruction. And finally, I want to echo what Ralph said. Our group would be happy to help with construction of inexpensive kayaking facilities at South River Farm Park and Weinberg Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next 3 names will be Stephen Hall, Jennifer Sell, and Lisa Aerosmith. And I encourage anyone else to raise their hand, as those are the final 3 hands that we see raised. So Stephen.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you, County Executive, Councilwoman, and Mr. Trumbauer. I'm speaking on behalf tonight of a plan to modify recently county acquired property at Quiet Waters Park for a group of paddlers and rowers called PARC, the Paddling and Rowing Community. For far too long, rowing has been quite absent in a public fashion in Annapolis, even though Annapolis is cited in the Boys in the Boat book. That's because it's only 2 colleges that have teams. Now, when you take a look at the benefits for this, it would benefit both the kayakers previously mentioned, as well as provide an area for scholastic youth to properly train and host both private school and public education rowing teams like you find in Alexandria, Anacostia, Baltimore, etc. In fact, you may not know this, but in Baltimore, high schools row out of the Baltimore Rowing Club, including Bryn Mawr, the Institute of Notre Dame Prep, Roland Park, St. Paul's School for Boys, and St. Paul's School for Girls. And when you take a look at the Thompson Boat Club on the Potomac River, you have Georgetown and George Washington U and 13 scholastic teams. At the Anacostia, again, another dozen teams. Yet we don't have the capability of doing the same for our student athletes. And rowing in Title IX is one of the greatest opportunities for our female scholastic athletes. So please consider that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Jennifer Sell is next.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sell. I live in Severna Park. So I just had a few things to focus on. First, I wanted to know about the status of funding for body cameras and car cameras for the police, the status of the county executive's proposed housing trust, funding for the Human Relations Council to investigate complaints of discrimination, and the plans for each county department to hire more African-American people. I would also like you to focus on desegregating education, implementing the recommendations of the Joint Initiative for Eliminating the Opportunity Gap, increasing access to healthcare, improving health outcomes, making affordable housing areas into areas of opportunity, conducting an affordable housing needs assessment, removing occupational segregation, increasing county support of Black businesses, implementing criminal justice and police reform, and expanding transit access to Annapolis. I'd like to spend a little bit more time focusing on desegregating education. You mentioned earlier that during the previous budget year, you guys hired more teachers. So I'm just wondering how many or what percentage of those teachers were people of color. And also, I do have a 5-year-old daughter who will be starting kindergarten likely next year. And I'm really concerned because although right now she's in a very diverse preschool, she'll be going to Severna or Benfield Elementary, which is a very not diverse school. I had to find this out. It took me a long time. It's very difficult to research the rate of diversity in each of our school, which seems a bit to be on purpose. And it really concerns me that we're going to be losing those opportunities for diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Aerosmith, next.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My name is Lisa Aerosmith. I am an Anne Arundel County resident and the chair of the County Public Water Access Committee, a group of activists who are dedicated to getting the 80% of the Anne Arundel County population who do not live in waterfront homes or water privileged home communities to the water. I'm going to briefly touch on several matters. I'm going to skip Spriggs Farm Park because it's already been covered. I agree with Ralph and Greg's assessment and thank Councilwoman Fiedler for her attention already to this issue. I echo the demand for the public swimming beach at Beverly Triton to be finished and quickly. The county can provide water access amenities on the Mayo Peninsula, but unfortunately, they're providing it to private communities. As they said, the county rents a public county marina to a private community for $1,000 a year. The county also just spent $179,000 on public tax money to fix the beach, the private beach at Lock Haven. You know, the county can put some of that money into creating kayak launches in Weinberg Park and South River Farm Park. And finally, I would like to speak to the need for youth camps for swimming and for sailing and kayaking in our county parks. It's low-hanging fruit. We have a lot of waterfront property and every child should be able to get to the water. Thank you.
Thank you. The next 4 individuals who I will call are Timothy Mcclay, Paul Spadaro, Brian Jameson, and Clayton Call.
Hi, my name's Tim Mcclay. I live in Severna Park. My comment relates to the format of the budget. It doesn't seem to provide visibility for the social justice issues. Jennifer Sell, a couple of speakers ago, had a nice list of things that we should be looking at, and for the taxpayer and the citizen, there's no visibility into what the vision is for closing the gap and what that means in terms of finances, which would logically be reflected in the budget. Now, there's obviously a lot more than just finances, but you would think that there would be something in the budget to reflect that. 2 examples would be the chart that was used in the county executive presentation about the impact of COVID on recovery, and that the great disparity in the COVID recovery was problematic, which I agree. So what are we doing about it? What do we need in the budget to address it? What's our plan for doing it? That would be one example. If we say that there's inequity in healthcare, what are we going to do about that? And where is the line item in the budget that talks about providing such things as additional funding for health equity and continuation of food programs? That was all I wanted to say, but I think we need to get some visibility to make sure that we're spending enough money in these areas, and I don't see it in the budget that's there now.
Thanks, Tim. Paul Spadaro is next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, Paul.
Yes, I'm Paul Spadaro. I'm president of the Magothy River Association, and I just wanted to focus backwards on the situation at Spriggs Farm. I believe that I am not happy with what I've seen about the county's plan to fix the erosion problem and fix the plans for the public access. Public access has been an increasingly important issue to the Mcclay River and to the county. We have very little public access. And from what I've seen, all it seems to do, the current plan at Triggs Pond, is limit the public access, not increase the public access. And this is where we need to go. I am specifically unhappy with this idea of correcting the erosion problems on that area. That is just not a situation. There is some erosion to the problem, but it's only limited to a very narrow spot on the park. And there's 50 or so acres that I believe the county could do a better job of giving public access to the communities and to those in the Mcclay River area. And I'd be willing to work with the county to improve that proposal that's on the board with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Brian Jameson is next, followed by Clayton Culp. And then looks like that is it. So if anyone else would like to say something, please raise your hand now.
Thank you. It's Brian, and Reese, a quick sound check.
Brian, I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. So again, Brian Jameson, I'm a District 5 resident. I'm in Severna Park, and I wanted to speak very briefly in favor of the wheelchair accessible public access for rowing and paddling that's been proposed, and the study's been performed at Quiet Waters Park. I have to confess, I was a Olympic medalist in 1996, so I'm very biased. Rowing means a tremendous amount to me. I've coached for most of my adult life. Most recently, for the past 10 years, I've been involved with coaching and teaching adaptive boating. So through crab, adaptive sailing, and more recently for the past few years, getting people with disabilities out on the water to row. And this facility will be wonderful for our group. We're a part of Park. We have a very rapidly growing and enthusiastic group of disabled rowers. But this is really a facility that will be used, as has been mentioned, by our youth and by the public at large. And I wanted to speak very strongly in favor of this and also articulate my appreciation for the work that's been done already. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And next is Clayton Pope.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Pittman, to you and your whole staff for your service to our community. My name is Clayton Call. I'm a District 5 resident in Arnold, Maryland, in the Maga Vista community. I'm also a former rower at St. Mary's College of Maryland, class of 2001. And I currently, my day job is to be the athletics coordinator for Arundel County Public Schools, which is an honor to have and have an impact in our community that way. I wanted to get on the call this evening just to, wearing all those different hats, both as someone who participated in the sport of rowing in college, someone who lives in the area now, someone who has a job in our public school system, just to express my personal and my professional support for water access in our county in general, and particularly for the Boathouse Project, Quiet Waters, that have been mentioned here by many others. While we don't currently have rowing or sailing or some of these sports at the high school level in Arundel County Public Schools, we would certainly love to be in a place to begin to be able to consider those things. And that project in particular, Quiet Waters, would allow some of that possibility down the line. I want to express my support for that as well, both personally and professionally. And thank you again and your staff for everything you do for Arundel County. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three are John Keane, O'Brien Atkinson, and William Smith. Mr. Keane. Mr. Keane, I believe you you are permitted to talk, so I believe you have to unmute yourself. Your hand is not raised anymore, so let's go
Sorry, I
with.
apologize for that.
That's okay. Here you go.
My name is John Keane, and I am also president of Friends of Anne Arundel County Trails. A couple of years ago, the Anne Arundel County Department of Public Works held a public meeting at Severna Park Middle School to present several concepts for pedestrian and bicycle improvements along Jumpers Hole Road between Benfield Road and Kinder Farm Park. Although public opinion was not unanimous, the vast majority of attendees supported the creation of a multi-use bicycle and pedestrian trail along the west side of Jumpers Hole Road, which would connect to the circuit trail within Kinder Farm Park. This trail would provide access to residential communities, 2 child care centers, Severna Park Middle School, and directly Benfield Elementary School, as well as to a garden center in Kinder Farm Park. The proposed trail would also improve non-motorized access to senior living and retail businesses on the opposite side of Jumpers Hole Road. I would like to know the following information. Has a capital project been created for this particular trail, or is such a project proposed in the Department of Public Works FY 2022 capital budget? If that project has been created, is it currently funded? And if the project is funded, when will the design process begin, and what is the anticipated date of construction? Thank you very much, and I'm very supportive of the Department of Recreation and Parks trail construction programs for the upcoming fiscal year as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Keane. Next is O'Brien Atkinson.
Good evening. My name is O'Brien Atkinson. I'm the Fraternal Order of Police President here in Anne Arundel County. I am also a resident of District 5 here in the Foxmore community. And I just wanted to chime in and thank Ms. Fiesler and Mr. Pittman for their support of the police budget. And I have been attending body-worn camera meetings and updates. And I can tell you firsthand that the body-worn camera program is moving along. It's moving along, I think, on target. And our officers are excited about the opportunity to participate in that program. Also, I just wanted to ask for and remind you both to continue investing in training for our police officers and continuing efforts to increase the diversity in our police department. I think a lot of the efforts have been working. Our current elected officials have certainly created an environment of collaboration and communication that has been long overdue, I believe, in the Anne Arundel County government. And so I wanted to thank you both. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. The final hand we have raised is William Smith. I'm also going to give William Smith 2 minutes as a last call for anyone else who would like to speak. Please raise your hand within the 2 minutes, and then we'll go back to Councilwoman Fiedler and the executives. Good evening. So, Mr.
Hi, my name's Bill Smith. I'm the coordinator for the Chesapeake Paddlers Association. I'm also a resident of District 5, live in Severna Park. Well, anyways, I just wanted to reiterate what Lisa, Ralph, and Dr. Greg had said, and Paul Spadero about water access, Spriggs Farm, the Mayo Beach Park, Beverly Triton, and also get a kayak launch for South River Farm Park and Weinberg Park. One thing I would, it's always kind of bothered me is Beverly Triton and Mayo Beach have been, for the longest time, been closed to the public, and they're slowly opening up, but it's still not very user friendly. Would love to see things move along a little quicker, get the beach open, and also longer hours for Mayo Beach, because right now there's somebody want to go out for launch and kayak out of Mayo Beach Park. They can only go out for a few hours and then have to be turned around and come back in. Also, Chesapeake Paddlers has been doing some work on some volunteer work on the Anne Arundel County side of the Tucson River, and want to reiterate what they said about, we could provide volunteers to help with any work that might be done. And one other thing too is right now they got a temporary trail at the Spriggs Farm Park, and glad they did it because the existing trail was getting washed out. But part of the problem with it is there's a lot of little stumps sticking up, and when you're trying to carry a boat, you cannot see them, and there really are a really severe tripping hazard. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Last call for comments. Okay, it looks like that's it. So I want to hand it back over to the county executive and Councilwoman Fiedler. Thank you.
Why don't you go first, Councilwoman Fiedler? It's your turf, and then I'll jump in at the end.
Thank you. Again, I just want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. You all have brought some really important priorities to the forefront. I did want to touch on just a few that were brought up this evening that I can answer to. I know Mr. Heimlich and a few other folks mentioned Spriggs Farm. I did talk to Recreation and Parks today. There is, as you know, a community meeting on February 4th. I plan to attend, and I did mention the concern over the mulch. That's something that they are already looking into alternative options. They know that it's concerns, so that I believe is something that they will touch on at the meeting on February 4th. So please know that that concern has been heard. I also want to mention Mr. Keane. You talked about the Jumpers Hole Road project. Yes, there is a capital improvement project number. I believe in 2017 and 2018, there were, I don't want to get it wrong, but I think 4 options that were presented to the community. So there is a design, that design phase has concluded. I believe, and I don't want to get this wrong, so don't quote me, I believe it's slated to begin construction next fiscal year, but it is a priority that I have presented to the county executive every budget to get that project move up a little bit. And then finally, I was kind of following on the Facebook chat. I saw Ms. Pat Lawler make a comment about the cleanliness of the Severn River Bridge and some exit ramps in the 5th district. That is actually, that falls under the purview of the State Highway Administration, but I am more than happy to connect folks to our delegates and Senator's Office of Constituent Services, so we can kind of make a note of that collectively and see if we can get some folks out there. I know they are a bit backlogged as well due to COVID restrictions back in March of last year. So that is all I have, and please, as always, reach out to me on my website or on the county council website. You can find me, and I have a blog. On that blog at the very bottom is a list of community meetings. So if you are on here this evening and interested in the Spriggs Farm Park meeting, it will show up. If you click on that link for community meetings, you'll be able to find all pertinent community meetings for not only the 5th district, but all across the county. So thank you again, and I look forward to the county executive's closing remarks.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fiedler. And thank you she's absolutely right when she says she lobbies hard for that trail on Jumpers Hole Road every year. In fact, I meet with all the council members before this process to hear their priorities, and Councilwoman Fiedler's priorities pretty closely reflect what we just heard. So that's a good thing, being in touch with your folks. I just want to run through a few of the topics that people covered. I mean, I always love hearing from the libraries and all of these. I think all of us love our libraries. They're almost the closest thing we have in the county to community centers. They have so many services now where people can participate. I look forward to getting back inside the libraries, but it's looking like the numbers are heading in the right direction, so that can happen fairly soon. Believe me, the Cape St. Clair Fire Station is something that I'm excited about a ribbon cutting for as well, and getting that done. Thank you for your work, volunteers there, and the professionals as well. And thank you, Obi, for always speaking up for the police department. Thank you for your service. Animal care and control, it's true, y'all showed up in person every single town hall last year and even had signs that you would raise up at each meeting, and we were able to deliver some, but I recognize that what we did was one step towards really modernizing that facility and providing the kind of care to the animals and the assistance to all the volunteers that we need. It's a great organization because it has so many volunteers, and I'm an animal lover myself, as you know, and we want to keep working on that. And my ears did perk up when I heard about that 2018 law that required the veterinary supervision of any animal shelter in the state of Maryland. So we'll definitely be looking that up and seeing what that means. We're always looking for a reason to do the right thing, and that'd be one of them. The water access folks, I think you all won tonight. You had the most people testifying, and I know you're tough. You're tough on me. You're tough on the previous county executive, and you'll probably be tough on the next one too. And that's a good thing. Y'all don't ask for a whole lot, especially the kayakers and the rowers. All you're asking for is a place to launch. And my ears perked up again when you said that, a number of you said that you could help with volunteer labor. That sometimes scares our folks who do capital projects. And but I love it. We've had bike trails done by the mountain bike folks, and they know how to do it. And getting you guys engaged in doing some more kayak launches. I don't know where Weinberg Park is, but I will look it up. I sure know where South River Farm Park is, and so I look forward to talking to you more about that. I know that the Quiet Waters, at the new Quiet Waters retreat, the conversation is ongoing right now, and will continue to be ongoing about the boathouse proposal. I know that there's another idea as well, College Creek, that the mayor has been talking about. So we want to make something happen for sure. We want to make sure it's the right place and the right project. And Clayton Call, thank you for, I didn't know that the head of our Anne Arundel County Public Schools athletic program was a rower. Good to know. Those of you who talked about inequities, Jennifer Sell and Timothy Mcclay, thank you for doing that. I think in Anne Arundel County, we often forget that we have poverty, that we have families who are struggling, and this pandemic has made it more clear. And I can guarantee you that the recommendations of the Opportunity Gap Task Force my staff has been working on an implementation plan, and you'll be hearing more about that soon. County Council, I believe, will have a bill asking it to support that plan, as the school board did just recently. Affordable housing as well. We have a bill in the General Assembly that would create a mechanism to fund the housing trust fund that you were talking about, Jennifer. And your list was so long, there's no way I'm going to get through the whole thing, so I won't try. But thank you for speaking up on those issues. And I have to say, I was also thrilled to hear from Paul Spadero, Magathie River Association, support for, it's probably long time support, but I hadn't paid attention to it much, but so much support for water access, because some of our the folks who do our river keeper, not our river keepers, but our river associations of our 5 rivers, are more supportive of water access, and others maybe less so, depending on where they live and how those issues come down. But I'm thrilled to hear that Magathie River Association, at least Paul Spadero, is really pushing for more access on that river. I know we need more on all of our rivers. Yeah, I found this an interesting set of topics, interesting group. There's a lot that wasn't discussed. I know that you care about as well. But believe me that we do think of what we hear in these town halls when we sit down with the departments and we hear their supplemental budget requests, and we go through the capital budget and we look at things. If I only hear about it from staff, it's not nearly as real as when I hear about it from residents, and it's even more real when I actually get out and see it. So I have been to Spriggs Farm, been to some of these other sites as well, and I look forward to going to the others and hopefully meeting with some of you at some of those sites. So please keep participating because that's the way it should work. Thank you. So good evening, everybody. I think we're done, right? Once again, I don't have my agenda, but that's okay. I think we got through everything. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And we'll see probably some of you at some of the town halls. Thanks.